Welcome back to Movie Recaps. Today I will show you a prehistorical adventure film from 2018, titled Alpha. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. Off a cliff, but three of them stay back, and one particular bull goes after Tao's son Keta. After savagely hitting him with its horns, it drags him to the edge of the cliff, where Keta falls to the abyss. Desperate to save his son, Tao tries to climb down, but his fellow hunters stop him, pointing out it is too late. While the men bring the sleds to carry the bison on, Tao stays by